Om Shanti. Welcome to Interview with the Raj Yogi. The theme this evening is part 2 of Power of Lightness. As usual, we'll start with a reflection. Usually at the end of the day, souls can feel a little heavy, the feeling that their energy is low. They've created, at this point, thousands of thoughts during the day. And they may be holding or carrying issues, memories from the day inside. It can feel cluttered, noisy, and even exhausting, heavy. And yet this is the perfect time to practice lightness, because one can feel the contrast so deeply. This art of becoming light, becoming free, letting go. It's very simple. It's a matter of pulling out, looking at the big picture by standing in the state of being an observer. And that creates the space to hold the truth. It's been said the truth will set you free. And so much like an actor walking off stage into the wings, I observe my day from a distance, as if watching someone else's life. I'm aware of all the scenes, situations, the melodrama of the day, observing it all without judgment, but also without engagement. From this very calm place of observer, a little distance. And that creates space in my mind to start to reflect on the truth that I am just an actor in a play. All the scenes come and go as they are meant to do. But I have solid ground to stand on. When I reflect on what is eternal or constant, the truth, I, the actor, I am a soul, an eternal being, indestructible. Whatever happens, I'll be fine. And I have great resources, capacities within the self. This enables me to soften my grip on the events of the day, a sliver in time, replacing the temporary with the truth, begins to set me free, feeling lighter. Om Shanti.
Om Shanti, and welcome to those who've just joined. This evening's topic is part 2 of the power of lightness. So we always like to address the how when it comes to any of these topics. And that certainly came up during the reflection. I was thinking a lot about truth and how important truth is needed, but I feel like that word, just like peace, has perhaps been so overused. Might become quite desensitized of what that even means. How truth is relevant to lightness.
I think the situation, it's ironic to say I think, because what I'm about to say is kind of about I think, but what we might have on the world stage at this time is not so much the truth as a lot of opinions. And I think that's why it feels a little tired or overused. It's a bit like the boy who cried wolf. We have so many claiming to speak the truth, and it's really a lot of opinions, which may or may not work or might work temporarily, but really don't hold water after a period of time or in the face of great adversity. One thing that we do hear a lot, though, is that God is truth. That it's just huge. In God we trust, God is truth. So it's very helpful to hear the truth from the truth. That if we can hear God speak, but yeah, it can feel very, very tired. I know for me, coming out of the fitness community, I've heard so many opinions over time of what you should eat, what you should do, what you should this and that, lots and more. The authority to science. So this feeling that science is truth, even though science itself has shared that what they observe is affected by the observer. Um, so it does become very tired. We're not quite sure what to trust because we're really just swimming in a lot of opinions. So we're waiting for God to speak, the truth to speak for itself.
It's interesting. While we were having our reflection, I was thinking about how one could be able to aware what they're hearing is the truth or not. And for those who may or may not know about Star Trek, I don't even know if it was in the earlier ones. I just remember Star Trek and the Next Generation, and there is something called the holodeck. And it's this, this is, of course, a futuristic sort of thematic television show. And there's a thing called a holodeck, and it's just a room. I don't know, it's like 12 feet by 12 feet or something. And it's supposed to be a concept of virtual reality. You go inside of it, it's just black walls with this white grid to indicate that you just turn a program on and you can find yourself wherever you want the program yourself to be. But it seems to somehow scientifically break all the rules of, you keep walking and you're still in that 12 foot by 12 foot space.
And you haven't
room.
walked into a wall.
And regardless of that part, but the reason why I mention that, because it's something that we can get ourselves lost into something that may not be real. And I know Shakespeare has said the world is a stage. We know what it's like sometimes we kind of get stuck in a certain way of thinking. and trying to, we use that phrase in English, snapping out of it. Um, in terms of trying to be able to, use the truth to feel light, what is going to help me to sort of break through that ceiling?
I think there's a couple of things that, or requirements that we ourselves declare that's very helpful in sorting it all out. And one is, what is our objective? We seek to feel light or free, is liberated is another word that we use. They're very connected, if not one and the same, that freedom, that lightness. So there seems to be some instinct in us to want to feel that. We really don't like to feel imprisoned. So the truth should enable that to happen. It's like a requirement. If I'm trying to test drive something, is this the truth? The question is it taking me into that freedom? And it's very, very tricky. Last week, the day after we had part one, that morning we had a point in our lesson, our morning class, which ironically was on the topic of lightness. And it spoke about the disciplines required to be free. And this is very counterintuitive to some of us because our concept of freedom has gotten very mixed with desire. I want, I want to do freedom, or lightness is doing whatever I want. So it doesn't seem right that disciplines would have anything to do with freedom. But when we look at the situation in the world, the result of us doing whatever we want is we are stressed and we feel entangled and trapped and heavy and burdened. So I want to have a lot of money. Okay, now I'm worried about the money, and what am I going to do with the money, and how do I, like, it just sort of goes on. So we have to be very careful when we're checking if something actually leads to truth. But it should, sorry, to freedom. Truth should ideally enable us to reach that objective. Why else would we want it? Why do we say the truth will set us free? But also the concept that truth is eternal. So we're looking even in fitness, it's so fascinating. Different trends and fads will happen, but the ones that persist over time, these eternal concepts, they're always reliable. They always are effective. Different fads will come and go, but there's certain things that stay constant. And I think that's the same for nutrition, for fitness, even, dare I say it, morality. There's, again, different opinions, but then we always come back to these constants. So the reason that's so powerful is that what's actually taking us into bondage is the temporary stuff, getting snagged on what is temporary. So the reason truth sets us free is because truth is about what is constant or eternal. So it enables me to anchor in something without getting tangled up in the temporary. So that should be a requirement when I'm checking, is this the truth? It should be timeless or constant and enable me to disentangle from that stress, from the temporary. It should have that effect.
So true. It's tricky because you could
Mm-hmm.
take something and use it in different ways,
Yeah.
however you want to. And it's interesting because I know somebody who, at the time, was getting a master's in counseling. And she was sharing about now there is a real virtual like world that there are many who are actually tapping into and kind of getting lost in that as well. And so it kind of reminds me of this example because I know you were sharing as well in the commentary that when we are actors on the stage and to really feel that, it's for someone who has gotten lost in those virtual realities to be able to get outside of it feels like it needs, to really actually be feeling if I'm told that I'm actually sort of stuck in this virtual reality and I don't know, but I could sort of be taking that information and sort of just work with it as well, where wherever I am. So, what has that feeling been like for you when you first came into the study? What did you recognize, and how has that helped you to taste this sense of reality?
Hmm. I think one thing perhaps we've talked about in a previous session, but just as an example, not the overarching concept, but just as an example, um, we tend to, we say, put people into boxes or pigeonholes, whether it's on the lines of gender or ethnicity or language or age. There's various metrics that we could use to put people, and really not feeling myself identifying with any of those boxes, as if waiting, for something to free me from feeling like, well, the only way to survive is to sort of find one of those boxes for yourself to go into, to belong to, and yet not feeling like they were just all creating heaviness or expectations that didn't really speak to the heart. And then coming into this study, and I remember hearing lesson one, you are a soul. I thought, finally, something to belong to that actually frees us from all of those other boxes. So, what this has always felt like, the study, because I think what happens to souls, especially around lightness or freedom, is that either it's one extreme or the other. So either I throw myself into the boxes or the traps or whatever that it seems, or I reject, avoid, escape. Those seem to be the only two options. So either that traditional customs, etc., or rebellion. And what I loved about the study is it gave me a third option. That it's not you're this or you're that, or I'm not this or I'm not something, is not a really powerful place to stand. I am not this, I am not this, that this rejection, then, but still I'm left with, well, what am I? So these aren't really good options. But this third option, I am a soul. So, okay, I'm not all of those different labels or boxes. But that option of I'm not those things is, we call it Brahm element in the study, or merging, that I don't exist. Like neither of those are very useful. But this, okay,
The
I
whole removed
exist.
self, that
Yeah.
concept.
And I hear this a lot, that the idea of I need to be one of the biggest sources of heaviness that many have figured out is ego. And so many talk about, the being free of ego, and they actually will refer to it as free of the self, because there's a feeling that the self is ego. Like, is there anything left? Because we have nowhere to stand. Everywhere we look, it's ego. So all we do is, okay, then I just, no self. What state is that? If I say no self, what is that? It's a very difficult. I can't actually conceive, my intellect, perhaps yours can, but I can't actually conceive what that anywhere. It's like when people say meditation means to empty your mind. And they ask, oh, so your mind is empty right now? They say, yeah, no, it's empty. I said, really? It doesn't even have the thought that my mind is empty. It's like, no, it has the thought my mind's empty, because my mind's, well, that's a thought. Your mind is not like, it's impossible. This emptiness option is not possible. And yet it's the only other option. Then I'm not, like, I don't want to be those things. They're bondages, so I'll just not be. But I can't not be. So I loved the third option. Okay, I'm not this and I'm not this. I am a soul, right? So now I'm able to walk and move around in this other very free identity of all of those different boxes. So I really appreciate having the third option.
While you're sharing, I had a realization.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember when I came into this study for quite some time, I hear the word lightness,
Mm-hmm.
and it would push a little button inside because it just felt like superficial. I felt like it was flighty. I don't know. It was just, and just when you were sharing, I realized that that kind of ideas are in that box of just, it's not rebellion, it's just sort of check out. It's
Mm-hmm.
in that category. And so I was reflecting actually, and I came up with regard to tonight's topic about being able to sense for oneself when it's real lightness and just something that's just a rendition, but it's not the real thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, is this something I would be able to sense the difference and that kind of refines through time? Or I'm sure that you could probably feel that from someone else if it's authentic or not.
I think we're really lucky in this study because we have what we call pioneers, those students that went before us, so we can actually see and experience what this third option looks like. The word that always came to me is, and it's difficult, but I think if souls are honest, they can feel it, is the word real. I feel real because, again, our options are image or nothingness. And neither of those is really me. Like, I'm not really me. So I feel real when I'm standing. And I know that's a very vague, but I think souls actually know that. And we can give a profile to it now. I remember hungering, just like we laugh whenever we have to do anything with. I've had to work a few times with adolescents, high school students, and I feel like they can just sniff out inauthenticity. Their, um, their demand almost for realness is very high because they haven't quite lost it yet. And I really appreciate that. I really like it because real has a very clear profile. It's above all else peaceful. So when we feel that inner, not outer peace, but inner peace. It's like, okay, I feel real now. The maturity, the purity, these are all profile. It's something solid to stand in versus nothingness. So now we know what the ego feels like, we know what checking out feels like, and we know what this third option, real. But when we look at the students who went before, we say real, but we also see royalty, dignity. This is what the third option looks like. So much dignity, even in the face of adversity.
So it's
So
very
there's
rich.
it's very rich. There are capacities connected to it versus nothingness, which is empty, and image, which is actually very weak. So there's incredible insecurity as we go deeper and deeper into the image.
I guess that lightness, if it's contrived, is part of image too.
Yeah.
So, I know we might be fast forwarding a bit to a deeper aspect in the study, but it's about the seed stage. We call it the seed stage, but it's this experience of being a soul. It's just solely, purely just soul, right?
Mm,
And how does that help one feel lightness?
mm. It's a very it again, we're sort of always kind of going in the wrong direction, these options. Um, as we feel very insecure and don't know the method to do anything about it, our sort of first go-to is let me anchor myself in stuff so I feel better. So we start to accumulate a lot of what we call attachments. Mine, not knowing that this is actually making it worse, 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 putting us more and more into bondage or heaviness. When I say I am a soul, that seed, nothing here is mine. It is an incredibly
That is a
liberated
full
state, the
experience,
full experience. But
almost like a, what do we call it, oxymoron?
it's
Or
very strange, but what I do, I don't feel empty. I feel the depth of the self, almost as if I was so consumed with accumulating stuff out there, I couldn't hear the sound of my own true nature. But when I'm courageous or open enough to, okay, to realize, you know what, nothing here is, and the bottom line is, nothing here is mine. I mean, if we looked honestly, like this, there was a while when this was in a store, it wasn't mine, and then actually, I think I got it as a gift, so, so temporarily, it's in my company, if you will, but it's gonna go again. like everything comes and nothing is mine. It's kind of a fact or a truth, if you will, if we just had the eyes, the courage to see it. So nothing is mine, and wanting to feel okay by making temporary things mine or trying to make them constant is an illusion. So, but we can feel secure by experiencing the depth within the self, what's within the self. This is what happens in that seed stage. And we have great support because in that seed stage, we are also in the company of the Supreme Soul. So we get to experience a being who is always in that truth, always in that powerful state. And they're there just to really to allow us to experience that. And we start to feel, okay, this is what I can feel like too, given that I am of the same species as that one. I am a soul too. So it just allows one to experience the truth about the self.
Just when you're sharing, I was thinking, I was very touched by one of the morning classes in the weekend about that, being with that soul, get to feel that pure stage, the power of that. But then the power of truth, the power of knowledge, like both are
Mm.
required. I mean, we were mentioning basically inequality, but in this topic of lightness, that we have that capacity to feel that. And actually, it's interesting you were sharing. I recall I had this. I don't know if I would have called it an existential reflection at the time, but this is just the time when I just came to study. So I just met Judy. Actually, took maybe I don't know a part of Raja Yoga course, maybe not even. So I had a fallout with two friends, and it was quite intense. And I remember feeling there was a time I didn't even know them, and it didn't even matter what they thought of me. And that was like, that's so weird how you were not invested at all at one point in time, and all of a sudden you were. And I remember thinking I was fine before that, and it was sort of an existential question because I think it starts to make us think about what we find out with a lot of things prior to us owning any of these things or being invested in these relationships or these positions.
Yeah, no, I mean, if we look at an infant, they have nothing. I'm sorry. This story has nothing to do with anything. It's just so funny. I know that Nora knows where I'm going. We were at a retreat, and it was the end of the retreat, and it was really time to go to lunch, and it had to end. And
I hope you can tell a story.
I hope I don't laugh. So one of the participants, and at the end of the retreat, at that point, they've been immersed in the spiritual atmosphere, so they're really open, and it's beautiful. They're sharing. So one of the participants was sharing very openly about the challenges they had coming to America. This retreat was in the USA, and that they said, when I came to this land, I had nothing. I had $10 in my pocket. That's all I had. And it's very melodramatic. And I'm thinking, oh my goodness, we have to respect the story, but we've got to go to lunch, right? And I knew there was only one facilitator on our team that could tactfully address this. So I'm sort of signaling to them, and I said, you're going to take this one. And it's very connected to what we're saying. I said, you know, when I came into this body, I didn't even have a pocket. Because she had said I only had $10 in my pocket. Says, I didn't even have a pocket. Couldn't even have $10 because I had no pocket. And it was so funny. And most would say, my goodness, but everyone laughed because they got it, that we had nothing. And then he went on to add, but I did have a stomach, and that same stomach now is grumbling and telling me it's time for lunch. But the point was that, that if we look at the beginning of even in this birth, we have nothing. We have very basic relationships, a mom and a dad, you
Babies are
know.
so amazing
Just
that they
they're
have nothing.
so free, so liberated. In fact, lightness is connected to several aspects. Lightness is connected to power. Lightness is connected to purity. Lightness is connected to liberation. And lightness, of course, just the classic form of the soul point of light. So I will know how when I take up each of those aspects in turn. How do I become powerful? How do I become pure? How do I become free? How do I become the form of the soul, that experience of the soul? Each of those is going to make me feel that lightness. But we've known that state as infants. We had nothing. We look at infants and we sort of are almost jealous. They just seem so free. They have no worries, and it's like, well, we could be that. What is creating worry? What is creating worry? What do I worry about when I look and just observe the worries in my mind? Will I be able to pay my bills? Will I be able to keep my job? Well, the word "my" comes up over and over. I remember once I was in a building. I was working there, and there wasn't an intercom system, so it usually was what we call the duty manager would sort of move through the building, making sure everything's okay, and they had a walkie-talkie, and they would sort of announce things if they needed to. So I was working in the back area of the offices, and I had vaguely heard them wandering around, saying something about a red car. Does anyone have a red car? But I wasn't. I was quite absorbed in what I was doing. And then, they walked around, and then they came back, and because they hadn't found the owner of this red car yet. So they came back and was walking through it and went away again. And then they came a third time. I thought I should really listen to what they're saying. Says, anyone have a red car? And I said, oh, yes, yes, I have a red car. And they said, well, it might be yours. There's a red car out here that we have that's been hit. And I remember first off not feeling any disturbance whatsoever. But the point was, for a very long time, I did not think they were talking about my car. So I had no feelings whatsoever. But the moment that it was my car, was there a change in the feelings? That word my. If it's someone else's car, we don't care. But when it's my car, why? This word my is super powerful when it is connected to temporary things. So, really sorting out when I look through time, even beyond the boundaries of the life of this body, what is mine and what is not mine? And then I'll know freedom. Because even this body is temporary. So if I attach to it, I will become heavy. As it experiences illness, etc., we start to get very heavy. So it's quite a big topic.
So it really feels like to revert back to that original experience of myself as a soul takes time, takes
Mm,
patience, takes depth, but just accumulate that experience again. Because
yeah.
it's interesting that, within the last few years, I can really feel the experience of souls when they're in little baby bodies. I'm sure
Mm,
you can feel too. There's such a freedom.
mhm,
But it's interesting. I don't think they're consciously aware. I don't know what they're feeling,
mm,
but it's sort of a nice example. Like this is what I need to feel and
mhm.
feel. So then,
Yeah.
otherwise, I can't sort it out. I can
Mm.
try to with my head.
Intellectually, yeah. It's actually at both ends of the spectrum, I have realized, spending time with elderly as well. Infants and elderly are at either end. We say retirement at the other end, but purity, innocence on one, and retirement. But they are very free. And part of that freedom is, you'll notice, they're not self conscious. So infants are incredibly goofy. And when we're around them, we probably feel lighter and become goofy too. And I've had the same experience. I just left a group today and I laugh every time. It's like being with infants. Like, I walk into this gathering and they all just look at me and go, hello. We don't know. And I'm just like, hi, how is I'd never do this. We don't do this with a group of strangers on the subway. We don't just walk into the subway car and say, hi, everybody. Why? Why don't we? So,
Image.
yeah, they at either end, they're very free of my image. And so there's light, 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 light.
Well, it's. I guess we could keep going, but it's the how that I really
Mm,
feel that souls just really want to feel. I want to feel light. I don't know how.
Mhm.
And to have the faith and trust that just keep experiencing yourself to be a soul,
Mhm.
enjoying the experiences, and it
Mhm.
feels like it's like a real empty tank that just
Mhm.
needs to be filled.
Yeah, I do feel the truth will set us free. And I will share from my experience that it was a challenge to experience. I could recognize that this was it. Absolutely. There was a pull. You could, for some, it's a subconscious pull. For some, others, it's a conscious pull, but a pull to want to unlock this, but also there is resistance to experiencing it. The old, the falsehood will not let us be free. The truth is trying to let us be free, and the falsehood won't. So, what I found was I spent a lot of time, as I called it, washing spiritual knowledge through. I really would read at that time. There wasn't online, there was nothing online. So was listening to a lot of tape cassette classes, reading a lot of spiritual knowledge, and also doing a lot of essay writing, processing spiritual knowledge, just tons, just washing it through, almost as if, it's like you have a space that you want to make into a meditation room, but it's been used as a storage closet for a long time. So you have to kind of clear it out and clean it up before you can even sit in it to have an experience. So I couldn't have an experience until I sort of cleaned things out a bit. And we call it the water of knowledge. Just kept washing it through, trusting it. So I kept washing it through, and then eventually was able to start having experiences of the truth.
Well, thank you. I know that we should probably put a pause to this, but if you
Mhm.
have any questions, any comments, you're welcome to put it in the chat box or send an email to the center. These interview the Raja Yogi sessions are really those principles and ultimately the how. And so we do invite you to join the experience sessions to actually go into the experience of being a soul. Um, Yes, that's very helpful to have the insights and also the experiences as well. So we'll have a moment of reflection.
It is said that the truth will set you free. Truth is that which is eternal. And there are so few things that are eternal. And so the truth is very simple, essential. It is in itself light. It's not complicated. It's not intellectual. It's not clever. It's very pure, clear, and clean. Very simple. And all that is required to experience the truth is a readiness to let go of falsehood, a disinterest in what is not true. That readiness is unique in time for every soul. Is it my time? Am I ready to let go of the falsehood, to let go of the old, to let go of the darkness, and start to come into the light? That humbling experience of opening up to the truth as if my mind becomes a blank slate, very open. And very, very slowly, because the truth is never violent, little rays of light begin to touch my mind. And I start to experience the truth in my own time. Om Shanti.
Om Shanti. Thank you for those for joining with us. I believe our next topic is timing. I said that last time, but I believe it is timing, which I find is a very thought provoking topic. I apologize if it isn't, but I'm quite sure it is. But I will pass it over to you, Judy, about our upcoming sessions. I know we're actually coming to the end of this month, so we'll be seeing what sessions are available for April.
So I've heard that next Tuesday on Interview with a Raj Yogi, the topic will be timing. I look forward to hearing what's going to happen. But before that, we have drop-in meditation again on Thursday from 6:45 to 7:30, and again on Sunday from 6:30 to 7:30 this month. I believe that might be the last session on inspired by Shivratri, looking at the attributes or specialities of the Supreme Soul, the one who is ever light. And then we have Inner Fitness on Saturday 2 to 3. The theme is creating your own program. And then 4 to 5 will be self-care, improving the quality of everyday life. And that's carried by the young adults. And I think that might be it. But please feel free to check our website in case we've neglected to share anything. And thank you for joining this session. Om Shanti.